welcome to another Automazing video. Today we welcome back Rafi Raban from our Racing to the channel. Today we'll be discussing his developmental RCF that has rather an interesting history. Thank you for your time going over all of the modifications and of course all the fixing costs for this beautiful RCF. Let's now perhaps look over some of those repair costs through voiceover, of course. Everyone, please like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching and we look forward to having you for the next video. So Rafi, welcome back to the channel. I guess we should start by talking about this specific RCF. Why did you get an RCF in general as a developmental car, and why this specific one with a very interesting history?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically we were looking for another shop car for an RCF because there's a lot of sort of developmental programs that we wanted to do with it. And I know a lot of the people who are familiar with us know that there is the Red Devil RCF, which is a race car owned by a very good friend and customer of ours, Pete, which is now a dedicated race car. So unfortunately, when something is a dedicated race car, you know, not everything is so applicable to the customers.
Just saw some photos of it on track with the 992 Cup and the Lamborghini Supertrofeo.
Yeah, yes, it was at that was at Lime Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, it's on it's over 50 track days. I got to ask Pete on original engine and original transmission.
And is it built drivetrain or is it?
No, it's original. Original, never touched, never touched. Supercharged, but never touched. So, the goal was to find an RCF at a reasonable price. Right. Now, this was actually purchased in September of last year, and prices then were higher than they are today.
Of course.
So you have to kind of take that into account. But at that time when I was looking, you know, a 2015-16 car with 70,000 miles or less, a nice one, you know, without a beat up interior and, you know, it was around 45 then for a good one. And clearly it's less now, but when looking at that, you know, that didn't really seem worth it to me at the time. Anyway, the car is going to get all modified and completely redone. So I don't...
So original condition and certain options don't really matter.
Yeah, I don't really care about a lot of things, if the wheels are dinged, if, you know, things like that. But the basic car has to be good. And I was just browsing around Copart, and I guess I'm no different than some other people who sometimes I'll watch a YouTube video. I got this great deal on Copart, and oh, let's see if it starts, you know, things like that. So it seemed like there was one, so I registered for Copart and I started bidding on it. The car, when you start bidding on a car in Copart, you can see pictures of it, and they tell you if it starts and runs and if there's any issues. The airbags on this did not go off. So the accident here was just simply a matter of the damage when the insurance company totaled it all up must have been over 20,000 from their perspective. Okay, so approximately, probably 50% of the value of the car. So it looked, and we could see the car from all angles. It looked to be like a door needed to be replaced, some body work in the back, the rear bumper had to be replaced, and also paintwork, obviously. And the right rear suspension looked to be broken. That wheel was hit really hard. It looked like the car probably spun around and hit some curb or something like that. Yeah. But generally speaking, like the engine transmission was untouched, everything ran.
Now you say there was a suspension component that was broken. Was there any structural damage in addition to that?
Well, initially we weren't sure, but because the right rear looked to be hit pretty hard, especially with that control arm being bent, the wheel was really banged up hard. We decided to replace both the subframe, the control arm, and the rear knuckle, and actually the upper control arm, which we had lying around. But those parts are actually not too expensive. For example, let me go over the totals here. The car we ended up bidding it to just over $25,000, which was more than I wanted, but you know, we still
reasonable in the grand scheme of RCS.
It seemed like it, yeah. It seems like pretty reasonable. The one issue which I warn anybody buying a car long distance through Copart is Their shipping rates are insane. I mean, just total ripoff. Which is to say, they wanted for open transport from Arizona to Pennsylvania, $3,000. Now, we went to our normal dispatcher that we use to ship cars to here, and we do that every week almost. We got that for $1,400. So right off the bat, you can shop around and get a much better price. The subframe, I ended up finding that on eBay from a crashed car, but from the VIN number, I could tell that the crash occurred in the front. So I had no problem buying a rear subframe because I knew nothing happened to it. And from the same car for $150, I got a rear knuckle, and a brand new control arm from Lexus was $150.
Interesting.
The only other part we had to buy was a rear bumper, and I don't remember exactly. I couldn't find the receipt for that, but actually they're not expensive. They're unpainted, but they're not expensive at all. About $300, something like that, $350.
Interesting. For an RCF specific bumper as well.
Yeah, they're not. They're urethane. You know, those kind of parts typically aren't very expensive. And the door would have taken a lot of repair to it, and rather than pay a lot of labor, it turns out a brand new door from Lexus is $600.
Interesting.
So that's not bad at all. And we're not talking about just the skin of a door, a whole door, perfectly straight, brand new door.
Including the skin, or
Yes,
you already had
including
that?
the skin. Sometimes they sell skins separate from the door, but you can buy a whole door as well, and it's $600. So it's just no-brainer. You don't want to sit there and start straightening panels for, you know, somebody will charge you probably 5-6 hours labor for that. So basically the subtotal without the paint came to about $28,000. And then came the paint. The paint work was just over $5,000, so around $5,400. And the total for repairing the entire car was $33,500. Now, that did not include the labor.
Of course.
Yeah, it includes all the labor for the paint work because we don't do paint work.
Of course.
But it doesn't include my labor and
Mechanics
my
labor.
mechanics labor, and basically, you know, the bottom line is this: that if you think you're going to buy a car on Copart and pay everybody to do the work, to do all the work,
It's not going to be as good a deal as you hoped.
I don't think it's going to be a deal at all. Especially when you know what the labor rates are. You got to be ready, I would say, to do 50 to 70% of the work yourself, or you definitely won't come out ahead. So for $33,000 and some change, you know, it wasn't bad. Especially if you go back to when we bought it, which was September, October, not, you know, July, August of 2023. So about a year ago. And today, you know, can you buy a salvage title or an R title RCF in the mid-30s? Yeah, you can, but you don't really know if it was fixed right.
Of course.
Whereas I really know this was fixed right. So in the end of the day, that was, I would say, definitely worth it. I've been driving it a while now, and it's amazing to drive. I really love it. So
I do understand that there were also some engine teething troubles, of course.
that was the unexpected part. After about, I would say, 3-4 months of driving it, it seemed perfect. Everything was fine. And then it developed a valve issue where it started misfiring. And I went and checked the valve clearance, and there was insufficient valve clearance on the back cylinder, passenger side. I re-clearanced it, and the problem came back. And this is the weirdest thing, honestly, with all the Lexuses that we deal with. I've never seen that problem, and we see a lot of problems. We see a lot of different problems. As reliable as these cars are, it's just that when people have unusual problems, they usually call us and send it to us and want us to fix it. So I usually see the most unusual things, but lucky for me, the most unusual thing actually happened to me with this car. So luckily we had a spare head and actually two heads, and we pulled the engine out and we replaced it. But had we not had that, if we were not a specialty garage that knew how to deal with these cars.
It would have been a
If
different
you
problem.
would be your own private person who would then have to go to a shop to do that work, yeah, it would be a very unpleasant bill that you would get in the end for, but quite frankly, something like that could have happened on a used car, so anything short of a certified car would not have protected you from the issue that we had. And I don't, certainly not related to the accident. The accident didn't touch the front of the car. I really don't know how that, yeah. And I haven't really seen this particular issue with other ISFs or RCFs or GSFs. So that was the unexpected part. Everything else was expected. That was unexpected.
So of course, since I think we can even see at the back of the car right here, since you have acquired the RCF, you have developed a whole host of parts for it, for the whole 2UR GSE Lexus line. Could you just go through some of those for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the parts here are parts that we already had, and part of it was just, put the parts on, drive the car, test it, verify the durability of it, see if there's issues. It always helps when you have your own shop car. So the first thing I did, of course, was put in a Penske suspension in this thing, because I can't stand stock suspension. I hate it. The car doesn't feel right to me. I want the car to feel ultra precise, super responsive. I don't like this willowy kind of behavior. I want it to feel as responsive as like an S2000, a small, light car. And it's a big car, but if you get the suspension right, you could make it feel like a small car. So yeah, the Penskes, we went with our race lower control arm bushings. We went with our billet upper control arms, which was really helps with the steering feedback, both of those items. And we went with a BC forged wheel. This is a square setup. So by square, we mean that the front tire is as wide as the back tire. And that's important for some of these bigger cars, bigger, heavier cars. You'll see them run square setups to get more tire in the front to keep them from kind of understeering. So we're running a 295 front and back without any rubbing issues or anything.
Interesting.
So other things we've been doing is engine work related to getting more power out of it, normally aspirated. So we're constantly like experimenting with certain things. And because of that engine problem we had, everything got pushed back a bit. But we're working on that. We came out with a new spoiler upgrade out back. And we're working on some exhaust products as well with this car. So as the year goes by, especially towards the end of the year, we'll be introducing new RCF parts related to the development that we've been doing with this car.
Let us summarize this RCF project. To begin with, the starting car from the Copart auction was $25,000. Secondly, transport from Arizona to Pennsylvania cost $1,400. In addition, the RCF-specific rear bumper was $360. Furthermore, the rear subframe was surprisingly $300. Moreover, the new door, including the skin, set back $600. Also, both the rear knuckle and rear lower control arm were $150. To finalize, the paint and bodywork cost amounted to $5,400, leading to a total price of $33,360 for the entire RCF project.